Hello everyone, back tuning in today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather next week, 10 days. For today's video, this will take us to around the 1st of March. So we're getting very close now to the beginning of meteorological spring. We may be starting meteorological spring on a really cold note though this year. We might have bitterly cold east winds and maybe some quite heavy snow driving in from the east. So might be a little bit nasty, I think, as we end the winter and go into the start of the spring. Well, there is still a little bit of uncertainty about the extent and the severity of this cold spell. So I'll tell you through everything that's going on in a second. I think we are definitely going to get a cold spell setting up from the weekend and through to next week. The question will be how cold and how much snow is there going to be, and we can't yet answer that, but I'll bring you up to date with all the latest. Right now, I'm going to begin with the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from the Penn State University website. So we've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS, we'll have a look at it in a moment. It's on the bottom, 500 millibars, 8,000 feet. This is an area in the absolute high pressure, low pressure, being drowned by a jet stream. And red extrapolates to high pressure, blue to low pressure. So we're placing a big blocking feature here to the north and the northeast and the northwest of the British Isles. A large block of high pressure is sitting there within the 500 millibar flow. And this is diverting low pressure to the south with the jet stream as well. So essentially we are bringing the air around that ridge in that sort of direction. Now, the only thing with this is that whilst it is a cold scenario, most definitely, and it is pretty blocked as well, there's just a slight Atlantic influence to the air there. So it's not severely cold. It is cold, and there will probably be some wintry weather in with that, but the ECMWF this morning is not as cold as some of the other models because it has slightly modified Atlantic influences. The GFS, though, is very, very cold. It's a very subtle difference, but we have this area of above average heights, again, to our north and to the northeast, to the northwest. We've got the below average heights with this trough, which is down to the south. That's where all the blue colours are. The jet stream also is going a very long way south in this scenario. It's going into sort of the Mediterranean. The difference with this is that we aren't pulling in the air with an Atlantic influence. So this is purely Arctic origin air that we've got here. So the GFS is a colder scenario. It's actually really quite a very cold, it may even say severely cold scenario in the 7 to 10 day time frame, because there is no Atlantic sort of influence to the air. The position of the block is kind of like cutting off any possibility of modification to that cold air. ECM does have a little bit of modification to that cold air. It's rather complicated. It's a subtle difference, and it's rather complicated. I'll talk you through it when we get to the charts from the GFS and the ECM, so that you can see the difference between the two. But that's the broad picture that we're facing, and on either scenario, it is turning cold, even significantly cold, at the weekend and lasting into next week. These are the GFS ensembles for the next 2 weeks. We're looking at Bicester today in Oxfordshire. So the red line here is a 30-year upper air temperature average. We are actually quite mild today. We've got a nice mild day, although it is rather dull and damp. But from here, it's pretty much downhill all the way. So through the course of the week, we're going to see our temperatures very gradually lowering off, so that we get to the weekend on quite a cold note. But it's not going to be until the second half of the weekend that the really cold air sets in, and that's when we see the temperature ensembles plunging down to that level. So going down to between minus 10 and minus 15 at 850 HPA. Actually, a few of these ensemble members go under that, go down below minus 15. That is very, very cold indeed. Going down to around minus 16, minus 17, minus 18 at 850 HPA. That sort of level would produce really cold conditions. But let's say they're outliers. So let's say that the main bulk of these ensemble members are going down to between minus 10 and minus 15 at 850 HPA. It doesn't last all that long at that sort of level, but just look at how far below the red line those ensembles are. So it does turn really, really cold within the GFS ensembles at the end of this coming weekend and in around a week's time. After that, there's a very gradual lessening of the cold, but the outlook really through this first week of March, this period just here, the outlook is generally one that is appearing to be quite cold. There are some ensemble members that are going milder for that first week of March, but the bulk of the ensembles are actually down here and extending the cold out through that first week of March, albeit not at that really very cold extreme level that we have for 2 or 3 days from around Sunday to Tuesday next week. Not quite at that level, but even so, it looks like a pretty cold outlook as we're going through that first week of March. The surface temperatures look like that. Remember, those are upper air temperatures. These are the surface temperature ensembles from the GFS model for Bicester, starting off just here around 10 degrees, I say, really quite pleasantly mild today. That's freezing, that's minus 10 down there, and that's minus 20, that's plus 20 up there. So we're starting off at around 10 degrees, but as I say, from here, the temperature is downhill through the course of the week. So slowly, day by day, we see those temperatures cooling off. So by the time we get through to the weekend and on into the early part of next week, we're basically flatlining for 2, 3, 4 days at around freezing. Really, maximums around freezing, and nights colder than that. Some of these ensemble members in this period are going down as low as minus 10. So it turns really cold next weekend and into the start of this coming weekend, I should say, and into the start of next week. And then very slowly the ensembles start to lift up a little bit as we go into the extended range, although still generally quite cold. There's a few milder outlier members up here, but the bulk of the ensembles are actually in that sort of area, which is still keeping things really cold, or maybe even very cold, as we go through that first week of March, that period just there. As far as precipitation goes, a lot of dry weather coming up through this week and into the weekend, and then next week, gradually, precipitation spikes are coming back, and with the air generally very cold, there could be the risk of some significant snow as those precipitation spikes return. Temperature anomalies for the weekend from the 19th to 27th of February are coming out colder than average for all parts of Europe. Very unusual to see that. So from Ireland and Portugal in the extreme west, over to the Black Sea in the east, and all points in between, the continent is firmly locked into colder than average conditions. I expect these to trend even colder in the days ahead. Precipitation anomalies look like that. A north-south split across Europe, so much of Central and Northern Europe is coming out drier than average. Southern Europe is coming out wetter than average. The reason that's happening is that the jet stream, this blocking feature gets going, the jet stream is being shoved down into the Mediterranean. So that takes the rain-bearing systems that we would normally get in the north and west of Europe down into the Med, and we are left under that big blocking area of high pressure across northern parts of Europe. That's how America's looking with the temperature anomaly in the week ahead. So it could be a really mild week actually over in the east of the states. The 19th, 27th of February sees those temperature anomalies significantly above average. The northwest of the states, that's where the colder than average temperature anomalies are in the week ahead. And you see, it is really very cold over in the Pacific Northwest of the states, but over in the east of America, actually turning very mild. Precipitation anomalies in America look like that. A zone of really wet weather there through those central eastern states. The southeast of America looks drier, and the northwest we've got a mix of some of the states looking a bit above average with precipitation. California is coming out drier than average. So this is how the GFS is looking for Friday. You're going to see the difference now between the GFS and the ECMWF. So this is how the GFS is looking for Friday. already we're bringing in a cold easterly wind on Friday. It's not bitterly cold, but you'll certainly notice it'll probably be enough to produce snow flurries. There's the upper air temperatures at 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday, Saturday I should say. And you see that we've got a deep, deep cold pool, which is sitting to the east and northeast of the country. Really deep blue colours there, indicating severely cold air in across Scandinavia and much of northern and eastern parts of Europe. Over in the west, from the UK, actually, the temperatures are not too cold. They are chilly, but by the start of the weekend, they won't be too cold. But look what happens on Sunday. The high pressure over Scandinavia strengthens, goes up to 1,055 millibars. And if you follow the isobars back, the air is originating from over here somewhere, where we've got all of that very cold air, and that will be surging across Europe on those easterly winds as the easterly winds freshen. So there's the upper air temperatures for Sunday, looking much, much colder. The -10 isotherm is pushing through the UK. Over across central parts of Europe, we've got the -15 and the -20 Celsius isotherms sitting there, indicating severely cold air is engulfing much of northern and central Europe by the end of the weekend. Into the start of next week, this is Monday 26th of February, the wind is well and truly in from the east. It's a strong wind, it's a bitterly cold wind as well. There's the upper air temperatures showing very cold air is surging across Europe and pushing into the UK as well. These easty winds will almost certainly be bringing heavy snow showers with them, particularly to the east. 510 thickness line, that's getting perilously close to southeastern parts of England, showing that we are pulling in true Arctic air and Siberian air from the east. We continue this big freeze into the early part of next week. So this is Tuesday, 27th of February, when again we have the blocking feature over Scandinavia and stretching out towards Greenland as well. So hints of a little bit of retrogression starting to take place, which is where we take pressure from east to west in that sort of direction, as opposed to the normal scenario, which is to go from west to east. And we're going from west to east down in the Mediterranean with the jet stream, of course. So that's the typical zonal flow. That's being pushed south into the middle of the Atlantic and into Mediterranean, as we start seeing hints of retrogression, taking the high pressure, instead of taking it from west to east, which you would typically expect, to take it from east to west. So on Tuesday 27th of February, we remain very cold. The wind is being pulled in from the east. It looks like we've got low pressure threatening the south as well. That could be threatening to bring more general areas of snow into the south. Otherwise, we're just looking at heavy snow showers pushing in from the east. Of course, if we get a trough banding those snow showers together, then we would likely see more prolonged spells of snow pushing in from the east as well. Bring up towards day 10. This is Wednesday 28th of February. Low pressure is developing around the Bay of Biscay. That could be threatened to push some heavy snow into the south. So by the time you get through to day 10, which is Thursday the 1st of March, we do actually have that area of low pressure just to the south. That could bring a snow event to many parts of England and Wales as that low pressure engages with the cold air. Otherwise, those bitterly cold easty winds continue up in the north. As we go out beyond day 10, we keep the wind in from the east through this first week of March. So it's a prolonged, very cold spell of weather that the GFS 6 o'clock run is going for here. Bitterly cold easty winds maintained beyond day 10, and no doubt still the threat of some snow being brought in from the east at times. So that's a very cold and very wintry GFS run. This is how the temperatures are looking with the GFS based on that run. So we're starting off nice and mild today at around 9, 10, 11 degrees, particularly focused on England and Wales, and a mild night to come tonight. Tomorrow will be a little bit cooler, but even so, only back down close to average, and maybe for the south and southwest, even tomorrow a little bit above average. With those temperatures. Possibly some night frost appearing in the north and west on Tuesday night, but otherwise not too bad. Wednesday, close to average with temperatures, a little bit cooler again on Wednesday, but even so, just talking about temperatures ranging from around 4 to 8 degrees Celsius, so not too bad. A fairly widespread frost, albeit quite a minor frost, on Wednesday night. Thursday, the temperatures are back to average then. So we're looking at temperatures in the north on Thursday around 4, 5, 6 degrees. In the south around 5, 6, 7, 8 degrees. So we're back to average with temperatures by Thursday. Thursday night, a widespread frost. Looks like quite a sharp frost as well. Friday is a colder day. Temperatures around 4 or 5 degrees, but still nothing overly dramatic happening up to the end of the week. A widespread frost on Friday night into Saturday. Saturday a little bit colder again, but once more only talking about temperatures in the north of around 2 to 4 and in the south let's say around 3 to 6. So it is a colder day on Saturday, but again nothing overly dramatic. A widespread frost taking place on Saturday night. Notice the frosts are getting more severe as we're going along with these charts, however, so the frosts do become harder as the week progresses. But it's really on Sunday that the very cold air starts to dig in. So by Sunday, temperatures in many northern and eastern areas are staying around freezing all day, and even in the southwest we're only seeing those temperatures going up to around 2, 3 or 4 degrees. A severe frost on Sunday night into Monday. Notice not quite as frosty in the east, and the reason that's happening is that the model is picking up on snow showers being brought into the east on those easty winds. But in the west, we have very hard frost by Sunday night. Monday, possibly an ice day. Look at that. Maximum temperatures are staying at or below freezing all day across many parts of the country. Parts of northern England, for example, being forecast to get maximums around -2 or -3 degrees. That's probably a little bit over the top, but certainly ice days are possible if we bring in that very cold air from the east. Monday night, a severe frost takes place. We see temperatures going down here to -7, -8 across some parts of the country. I would have thought -10 is a distinct possibility for one or two areas. Another day on Tuesday, 27th of February, where those temperatures stay below freezing all day. Another severe frost on Tuesday night, and then Wednesday, barely above freezing. With the temperatures again a little bit higher on Wednesday next week. That's because we're bringing in a risk of snow. And then into Thursday, the 1st of March, Thursday, 1st of March, those temperatures again are really struggling to get much above freezing across many parts of the country. So you get the idea that the GFS really is going for a very prolonged and quite severe cold spell, starting in the second half of the coming weekend and going into next week. This is how the ECMWF is looking. So the winds are in from the east on Friday, albeit not desperately cold. As we go through into the weekend, we do push that high pressure a little bit further north into Scandinavia. So we're trying to get the wind into the east. And then we go through to Monday, when again we are bringing in the wind from an easterly direction with that area of high pressure over Scandinavia. However, look at the upper air temperatures. They are not as severely cold as we see with the GFS. So I talked about this when we started the video, height anomaly flowcharts. The ECM is not pushing in this very cold air in the same way that the GFS is doing. We go through to Tuesday 27th of February, hints of retrogression. We're starting to move that high pressure from Scandinavia towards the north of Scotland. Notice the high pressure here is a little bit further south, which means the coldest of the air is passing just to our south. It's just giving us a glancing blow, particularly for southern and southeastern parts of the country. But this is not as cold and it's not as snowy with the ECMWF model as we see with the GFS. Nevertheless, it is very cold here on the 27th of February. We've got the -10 isotherm covering much of England and Wales. So, I mean, it's really cold for a brief period. Again, there's probably risk of snow showers in the south and southeast, but it's just not quite as severe, if you like, as what the GFS is showing. And then go through to middle of next week, that high pressure has moved out to the northwest of Scotland. Notice with the upper air temperatures by Wednesday 28th of February, the coldest of the air is pushing southeastwards. So we are just on the periphery of it. We do get it for one day. on the 27th, Tuesday 27th of February. Get that very cold air. But by Wednesday the 28th, it's already starting to slip to our southeast as we're just beginning to modify the air, move it around the top of the high pressure with a little bit more of an Atlantic influence. And then we go through to day 10, as far as we can go with the ECMWF, and we look like that. So the high pressure is, by this point, it's out to the west of Iceland, interestingly, and to the south of Greenland. I mean, it's still cold, don't get me wrong. This is still a cold, maybe even very cold scenario. It's just not quite as impressively cold and snowy as that GFS run I was just showing you would be. There's the upper air temperatures by day 10. Much of Europe, I know we do have a lot of people watching from Europe, so much of Europe is still well and truly locked into the freezer. Look how cold those upper air temperatures are at day 10. But for the UK and for Ireland, it's just not quite as impressively cold. And again, the reason is that with the position of the high pressure, we're just rolling the air around the top of the high pressure with an Atlantic influence. So it modifies the cold potential quite a lot compared to the GFS anyway, modifies it, and also it means that there's much less of a snow risk with that scenario as well. If we would run on a day or two more, I suspect we would probably find this ridge pushes more towards Greenland, and then we would maybe start tapping in to that very cold air to the east. So it is still threatening, I think, the ECM to go very, very cold indeed. And then finally, the GEM, the Canadian model, looking like that. We've got the high pressure in over Scandinavia on Friday. We're bringing a gentle easterly wind into the south, and that continues into Saturday and into Sunday as well. That's how things look in a week's time on Monday. Again, we are bringing in the air from the east. It's getting colder by the day. That's how things look on Tuesday the 27th of February. Proper easterly blast hitting England and Wales. There's the upper air temperatures. They look very impressively cold. I think the GM is more with the GFS this morning compared to the ECMWF. And then we go up to Wednesday, 28th of February, the high pressure. It is retrogressing. It's going from Scandinavia to Greenland, and its centre next Wednesday is across Iceland. Again, that leaves England and Wales with that strong and bitterly cold. It is a bitterly cold easterly wind. There's the upper air temperatures. They look really impressively cold indeed. And then we finish up at day 10. Again, a really impressive blocking feature around Greenland and Iceland. Keeps us well and truly locked in to very cold conditions. The flow is going like that for jet stream. It's an abnormal jet stream indeed. And if you have a look at the upper air temperatures finally for day 10, still freezing cold, and particularly focused across England and Wales, where we would have the risk of heavy snow being dragged in on those easterly or northeasterly wind. The difference is in the placement of the high pressure. Essentially, all that's happening with the ECM is that it's a bit further southwards compared to the other two models. The other two, the GEM, what we're just looking at, GFS, have the high pressure starting around there, and then it finishes up around there. So that leaves us pulling in those very cold easterly winds. The ECMWF has the high pressure around here to start off with, and then finishing up somewhere around there. It's further south, which means that the easterly wind is also going further south. It's a very subtle difference, very slight difference, really, but it makes a big difference to the potential between just a generally cold spell of weather, and it is going to get cold. We can say that, I think, with almost 100% certainty. Now, it is going to get cold. It's going to become colder as this week goes on. It will continue to get colder into the weekend and the start of next week. The question is, how cold is it going to get? Are we just talking about general UK cold weather, or are we talking about something that could turn really quite severe and bring a lot of snow with it as well? That is still to be revealed, and we're going to have to firm up on the detail of the exact placement of this ridge of high pressure, this blocking feature, over the course of the coming weeks. So that's what we'll be doing in the videos this week. Right, that's brought you up to date with everything. It's been an extended video because I just wanted to explain what's going on. So that's all for now, and thanks for watching.